We love Nestera Coops, and we've got all the different styles, and we're often asked, well, which one's the best, which one's perfect? Well, today we're going to explain which is the right one for you with the assistance of a wooden chicken.
Welcome to English Country Life. My name's Fiona, and together with my lovely husband Hugh, we run a small holding homestead here in Lincolnshire in the UK, and we love Nestera Coops. And we're asked an awful lot about which coops are suitable for our subscribers and viewers in terms of size, in terms of format. And in this video, we're going to try and help you and answer all of these questions. Now, there are four coops in the range. There's the ground coop, there's the lodge, there's the raised coop, and there's this little beauty, the wagon. And all of them are slightly different. What we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to talk about the attributes which apply to every single coop in the Nestera range. We'll then look at the individual sizes, so you can decide based on the breeds of chickens you've got and the numbers that you have, what size is best for you. And then finally, we'll have a look at the individual styles themselves, what's great about them, but also what you might need to consider to move to a different style that might be more suitable for you. But let's get started and have a look at those attributes which apply to everything in the range.
Let's talk about some attributes of the whole of the Nestera range. It's made of this 9mm thick recycled plastic, which means it's not only really strong, but it's got first-rate eco credentials. But it's more than that. On the inside, there's big sheets, and they're completely smooth and shiny, which means clean out is a breeze. Honestly, we just put a jet wash through them, clean them out that way, but a strong hose will do it. And there's no little nooks and crannies for red mite to hide in, as there are with these sort of shiplap and tongue and groove wooden coops. And it's even better than that. I used to spend weeks in the winter staining and repairing and cutting wood and varnishing and trying to maintain wooden coops to last. These things are maintenance free, and they are so strong they're guaranteed for 25 years without maintenance. If you can find another coop that offers that level of confidence, I'd like to hear about it. Let's look at predator proofing, auto openers, and the doors themselves. So first things first, Nestera Coops are these big, flat, 9mm thick, tough sheets of plastic. So there's nowhere for claws and teeth to get hold of to rip into the coop, unlike tongue and groove or shiplap that you get on a lot of wooden coops. The door is metal, and interestingly, on the ground coop, on the raised coop, and on the lodge, it's a rotating door that runs on a pivot up here and sits within tracks. And the fact that it's within tracks means there are no exposed edges for Foxy's nose to push under and lift that door. If you want an auto opener and closer, I suggest you go with the Nestera one. Because it's a rotating door and not a vertical lift, it's not suitable for lots of things like the chick safe and the chicken guard types, which rely on the weight hanging on the string. So if you do want that, like I say, go with the Nestera one. It's designed for this kind of door. Let's take a quick look at the wagon. Same big flat sheets that don't provide a purchase to predators, so that's good. It's got a different kind of door. It's the more traditional vertical pot pole. That has some advantages. So if you want a chicken guard or a chick safe, which we really like in terms of the auto openers and closers, you do have that option with the wagon. It does have one other feature. It's got a manual catch here, and if I push that across, that door is locked. If I want to open the door, I just open the catch, lift the door, and push the catch the other way, and it locks the door in the open position. Now, if you're really worried about something lifting that door, then I would suggest don't use any form of opener, do use the manual catch, but you'll have to close your birds up at night, let them out in the morning. An often overlooked part of chicken design, but the one that knowledgeable keepers have asked us about, is coop ventilation. And it's not always obvious when you look at a Nestera coop, so let me explain the design. On this side of this coop, and this is true to all the coops in various different locations, but on this side there is a fixed ventilation system, and underneath this roof, tucked away protected from rain, is castellation. It's little cutouts in the top of the wall that allows fresh air into and out of the coop. On this side, there's variable rotating ventilation that can be opened and closed. So on a hot day, we can open those vents up, we get a lovely cross breeze that blows through the coop and keeps it cool. But when it's raining and windy and blowing a hoolie like it has been lately, we can close up those vents, it stops rain blowing in, but we've still got plenty of fresh air coming in from the protected side of the coop. One thing I want to touch on briefly, because it's a question we get asked a lot, because these coops are black plastic, is what are they like in terms of thermal protection? Right, so in the summer, rather than give our opinion, we took 4 Wi-Fi enabled thermal sensors and we put one in a Nestera coop in full sun, one in a Nestera coop in shade, one in a wooden coop in full sun, one in a wooden coop in shade. And here's what we found. We found out that where you put the coop makes all the difference. The ones in full sun were considerably hotter than the ones in full shade, whatever they were made of. Where the conditions were identical, the difference between a wooden coop and a black plastic coop was 1 or 2 degrees at most. Now recently, I've wanted to do a similar exercise to find out about keeping your chickens warm in cold conditions. So on a night where our air temperature here was between -4 and -5 centigrade, I again took the 4 sensors, I put one in an occupied Nestera coop, one in an empty Nestera coop, one in an occupied wooden coop, and one in an unoccupied wooden coop. And what we found is the presence, even of a very full coop, the presence of chickens does not increase the air temperature inside that coop considerably. And of course, with the necessary ventilation, any warm air is sort of blowing out all the time. The chickens stay warm by trapping warm air inside their feathers, like you and me, huddled under our blankets and duvets. But the air temperature actually in the coop is not changing much, and it makes no difference if it's a wooden coop or a plastic coop.
It falls to me to talk about size of the coops, because let's face it, size matters. No matter what anyone tells you, size matters. And we get asked a lot, how many chickens are going to fit in the coops? So here has very kindly made up these templates. But unfortunately, the paint's still a little bit wet on them. I think that's down to the colder weather. So please excuse the blackboard paint that's on my hands. So how many chickens can you actually get in these coops? Now the ground, the lodge and the raised coop has 3 sizes. The small, which is the red, the medium, which is the black, and the white, which is the large. And the British Hen Welfare Trust recommends this as a size that a chicken needs in the coop when they go to roost at night. But this is square. Chickens aren't that shape. So we've taken the same surface area and made it more chicken-like. So this represents your standard Isobrown or Warren egg layer, the kind of things you would get from a rescue from the British Hen Welfare Trust. And if you're going to put them in a small coop, bear in mind this includes nest box space as well. It's recommended by Nestera that's 1, 2, 3 chickens will fit in there, which is absolutely bang on, as you can see from this template. Now, if you have got bantams, which are a lot smaller, you can actually get 5 in here. And if you've got large giant breeds like Buff Orpingtons or Brahmas, they recommend just 2. So let's have a look at the medium. Now on the medium, it's actually recommended that you can get 5 of these templates inside, because bear in mind you've got 2 perches here. So you can actually fit 5 chickens of the Warren or Isobrown size in this coop. If you've got bantams, again, it's a lot more. You can actually get 9 in. And if you've got giant breeds, they recommend 3. So let's have a look at the large. Now in this coop, they're actually saying that 8 can easily fit in. So 4 at the front, 4 at the back on the 2 different perches. And if you've got bantams, up to 15 can get in here, because there's a tiny little chickens, really, really small chickens. Now this is where we disagree, because on the giant chickens, like the Buff Orpingtons that we've got, Nestera recommends you can only get 5 in the size coop. But from our experience, we've comfortably got 8 in, and actually we've got 8 at the moment in one of the large lodges. And I have to say, I've got a real problem every single night stopping Pelican, another Buff Orpington, from going in that coop. She's determined to sleep in there, and I have to kind of walk her back to her own coop every single night. It's very, very annoying. Now you might be thinking, we haven't talked about the Wagon. So these coops have got a door here. That's for the ground lodge and the raised coop. And actually the one thing that we didn't talk about before is the back comes off for easy cleaning. So that is really straightforward to help that cleaning exercise. If you've got a wagon though, the orientation is this way, but it's exactly the same floor space. Now on these coops you've got a fully opening front door, so it's still easy to get in and clean them, but it's the same amount of chickens in a large ground lodge or raised coop as in a wagon. There is another consideration in terms of size. Please excuse Sassy here pulling at my clothing. She's determined that I've got treats here, which actually I don't. Now, your coops are generally just for roosting and for sleeping, and we have these shelters that are used all during the day. Unfortunately, they're actually still on top at the moment rather than underneath, but that's because I'm sat here. Now, if you don't have shelters, you might want to consider actually buying a bigger coop to give them more space. And the other reason to buy a bigger coop is, sorry, Sassy really just wants to be around me. The other reason to buy a bigger coop is chicken math. Now what's chicken math? Well, it's where you start with 2 chickens and then all of a sudden you've got a flock of 50. So it's a good idea to actually buy a bigger coop if you can, because don't forget a larger coop doesn't make any difference in terms of the warmth for your chickens inside, because they're keeping themselves warm by huddling together and trapping warm air in their feathers. So bigger is always better.
Let's look quickly at the models and the pros and cons of each of them. This is the ground coop. It's my personal favourite for breeding because it's very low to the ground, has a very shallow angle, it's really easy for tiny chicks to get in and out of. And that also makes it especially suitable for bantams or arthritic chickens that might struggle with a ladder or a very steep ramp. Has got a couple of considerations. First one is, I'm now in the wet here, I've got muddy knees, and that's a consideration when you're cleaning it out each morning, when you're collecting eggs or changing bedding. So if that's a problem for you, bring a kneeler with you in the winter when the ground is a bit disgusting. The other thing is, being very low, you can't see what's going on underneath it. And again, particularly in the winter, things like rats and mice have a habit of coming up underneath warm chicken coops, and they can even burrow their way into them. So to protect against that kind of activity going on unseen, we sit our ground coops on paving slabs to make sure that nothing can come up underneath them.
The lodge is my favourite for our adult Orpingtons. I absolutely love this coop for them. It's still got a ramp that the adults can get up really easily. Now the only thing is, if you are breeding, chicks for the first 4 weeks of their lives do struggle a little bit with this angle, but we've got around that. We've actually innovated a slightly longer ramp for that short period of time. So it actually comes to here, so it's a shallower angle, and they can get in and out no problem at all. Breeding hens love these coops as well. It's raised off the ground, and that gives you well, it actually gives 2 advantages. First of all, it gives you a rain shelter. So if you don't have a shelter for your chickens elsewhere for them to access during the day, and it starts to rain, they don't have to go inside to get dry. They can just shelter underneath. Now 9 times out of 10 they're just going to stand in the rain and get soaked anyway, but there is a rain shelter there. That is very handy. And you also don't have that rodent problem where rodents try to burrow underneath and find somewhere warm in winter underground using the radiated heat from the coop, because there's too much of a space. There's no radiated heat and you can see exactly what's going on. There's no more kneeling down either, so there's no more wet knees, no more cold knees in winter, but there is still a little bit of bending, and that's the only thing to consider about this. So if you do have a bad back, or if you have issues with your back in any way, you do have to, it's only a little bit of bending, it has to be said, but let me just demonstrate. So I'm going to take the nest box roof off. Oh, I've got another blue egg in there. So I am actually having to bend over just a little bit. Look, little blue egg. But that's the only thing to think about if you're going to look at the lodge. And if that is a problem for you, let's move on to the raised coop.
We're in a different place. This is our big wired ultimate flock down enclosure, and it's the perfect place to demonstrate this, the raised coop, which is a very different animal altogether. I love it. It's fantastic, and I love it because I've got a glass back. My back goes out, and even when my back is at its worst, I can collect eggs, I can clean this coop, I can change the bedding because I don't have to bend my back at all. Now that may not be an issue for you, but for old fogies like me, that is a massive issue, and it's lovely in the winter not to get muddy knees kneeling down cleaning stuff out. So that is a huge plus for it. I'm going to ask you to pay attention to the front, because one thing that's very different about this is it's got a ladder. Now that means, in my opinion, it is wholly unsuitable for small chicks, and we've also noticed that our elderly Orpingtons, the great big orange bouncing ball floofs, can struggle with a ladder. Cream leg bars, morans, leghorns, in and out of this thing all day long like it's a climbing frame, but certainly initially some of the Orpingtons actually struggle to use a ladder. So if you've got elderly or quite lumbering chickens, give that a little bit of a think. Other things to consider is the area underneath. It's different than the lodge. Whilst the front is open and the rear has a large aperture, the two sides are solid. And that means you can orient it so that the two solid sides face your prevailing winds, and it provides a fantastic wind and rain shelter for your birds. It really does. And being higher than the lodge, it is even more suitable for that. The other thing that I love about it, and why it's in the flock down enclosure, is if you're ever in the situation where you've got avian influenza housing restrictions, one of the rules says your feeders and drinkers must be undercover to prevent feces from wild birds flying overhead falling into them. Well, tuck them under there and you're immediately covered legally. So that, in my opinion, is a great plus for this one. It's got some options. So there are options available for the raised coops that aren't available on either the lodge or the ground coop. And one of them is you can get wheels, which means they're much easier to move if you're on your own. There's different sizes of wheels for small, medium and large coops, so make sure you get the right ones, but they are available across all three sizes in the range. The other thing that's only available on the large size is a wired run. And what the wired run does is it blocks in that hole at the back with wire, extends out to the front of the coop. You get doors all over it. It's not huge. It's 2 meters long, including the area under the coop, although you can also buy extensions for it to make it bigger. It's not the size of run that I would consider to be suitable to permanently keep your chickens in. It's not a flock down enclosure. It's not something that's suitable for an area that's where they're going to be all the time. But in the summer, when you're using an auto opener and the sun gets up at 4 AM, what that is going to do is it's going to give you an area they can come out to, they can have their breakfast, they can stretch their wings, they can have a peck around. When you're up a little bit later, you can let them out into a wider, free-ranging environment.
Let's talk about the Wagon. Just look at it. It is incredibly practical, but it's a thing of beauty too, and there's nothing else like it on the market. So if you're after a coop which is going to be in your back garden, that you're going to look out the window and think, wow, that's amazing, this is the coop for you, and you'll never have a visitor to your home who doesn't comment on it, because we get so many questions of everybody who visits the site. It is a really popular talking point. But it's an incredibly practical coop too, and it actually is our favourite all-round coop. Now, I did say the lodge was my favourite, but I qualified it by saying it's a favourite for adults. This coop is a favourite for every single chicken we have, so whether that's a day-old chick with their broody hen, or whether our very elderly and infirm chickens with a bit of arthritis, because it's got that low ramp, they can easily get in and out. And in summer, we install an individual broody hen hatching her eggs in an individual coop to raise those chicks. And it works for every other coop we've got. But this one, once we've had a broody hen hatch her chicks in here, we always have another broody hen moving in with their chicks. And they tend to live in here very happily together. And then it's a battle to stop a third one moving in. So the chickens love this. They absolutely adore this coop. And why is that? Well, I think it's got something to do with the volume inside, because it's a lot higher, but that allows it then to have high perches, which keeps a floor space underneath clear. So you've essentially got a mezzanine there, which gives them 2 levels they can have access to, and it really does work. They prefer to be in this coop, whether adults or chicks, at all times. If they've got a choice of being in here or another coop, they will go in. But what's the downsides of this coop? Well, it's exactly the same as the grounds coop. So if you've got a bad back or if you have problems kneeling down, you will have to kneel down to clean it out or to collect eggs. But I just want to show you this. The front door opens entirely, so when you do want to clean it, it's really easy to do that because it gives you a big aperture and you can easily access the inside space. And the other downside we said with the ground coop is that because it's low to the ground, potentially you could have little rats coming along in winter and try and burrow underneath and make a warm home, because the floor is close to the ground, that warmth is radiated down into the ground. But you can prevent that from happening really easily because you can do what we do with the ground coops and put paving slabs underneath, or like this one, we just move it around. Because it's got 4 big wheels, it's easy to move. Only one of us is needed, either Hugh or myself, to push it around the site. It's so easy to move. But if you're on a sloping site, if you're concerned about it moving around, it does come with brakes, so you don't need to worry about that as well. But this is our all-round choice from the Nestera range, the Wagon.
That's our roundup of the Nestera range. And bear in mind, they're all guaranteed for 25 years, really good access, easy to clean, resistant to red mites. No, there is nothing in my hand by the way of treat sassy, sorry about that. But they are fantastic coops and you don't need to maintain them, which makes a big difference. And over that 25-year life cycle, they work out incredibly cheap. Now, economics do matter. So as much as we love the Wagon, and we love it so much we've bought 2, you can get 2 of these ground coops for the same price as a Wagon, and those kind of economics matter. On that subject, we now sell the Nestera range on our website, and if you can't wait, go down into the description, you'll find a link to our website and there'll be a discount code there that will give you a discount straight away. But what I'm going to encourage you to do is to use the contact us button on our website, and that applies whether you're in the UK, the US or the EU, and we will happily talk you through all the options, discuss what we think is the best possible setup for your needs. We'll give you video tours personally of our coops to try and help you decide, and we'll work out the best possible deal for you anywhere in the world that Nestera have coops available. If you've enjoyed today's video, can you spare us 5 seconds, give us a thumbs up down below. If there's anything you want to know about the coops, about chickens generally, or our small holding life, leave us a comment down below and we'll get back to you, or even like this, we'll make a video to answer your questions. If you want to see those videos and everything else we do, click on subscribe down there, hit the bell next to it, you'll hit every time we upload new content. For today, thanks for joining us, come back and see us soon. Take care.